Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a completely fascinating political theory today, looking at exactly how modern, multicultural societies actually handle our individual differences. We're going to be unpacking a concept known as the politics of difference.
So let's kick things off with a massive question about fairness. Does treating everyone exactly the same really mean equality? We're almost always taught that fairness means giving every single person the exact same treatment, right across the board. But today, we're going to see why that traditional, ingrained view might actually be missing a huge part of the picture.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, rethinking traditional equality. Second, defining politics of difference. Third, diversity in action. Fourth, the critic's perspective. And finally, finding the balance.
All right, let's get into part one, rethinking traditional equality, and specifically, the limits of sameness.
What we're looking at here is a complete paradigm shift. Traditional political systems usually demand strict sameness. Like, the old idea was that equality meant a rigid, one-size-fits-all approach. But the politics of difference pushes back hard on that. It argues that true justice absolutely requires acknowledging our unique, individual identities.
Because here's the reality. Treating everyone exactly the same can actually leave marginalized groups behind. Seriously, think about it. If you have identical rules but you're completely ignoring the specific, real-world hurdles faced by minority communities, is that genuinely equal? The playing field doesn't just magically level out because the rules are identical, especially if the starting lines are literally miles apart. Moving right along to Section 2, defining politics of difference and valuing our unique identities.
So the politics of difference is not just about passively tolerating the fact that people are different, it's way more than that. It is a highly active, conscious process. It's a political idea that places huge emphasis on actively recognizing, respecting, and valuing our distinct traits. It basically frames our differences not as problems we need to fix, but as fundamental realities that deserve respect.
And these vital differences, they cover a massive spectrum of the human experience. We're talking culture, religion, language, gender, ethnicity, caste, race, personal identity, the whole shebang. Acknowledging these deeply rooted facets is absolutely crucial because, well, they literally shape a person's entire worldview and their day-to-day reality.
Let's look at how this plays out in the real world in Section 3. Diversity in action, empowering marginalized voices.
Because that rigid, equal treatment model ignores major societal barriers. Certain groups, like tribal communities, women, disabled persons, and cultural minorities, often require tailored support. Take something as simple as adding a wheelchair ramp to a public library. That's a perfect real-world example of acknowledging a specific difference to ensure actual accessibility. It's about taking concrete steps to achieve equality in practice, not just having equality on paper.
So, to achieve true inclusion, we actually have to do the work. First, enact policies that explicitly protect diversity. Second, consciously make space in the public sphere for different identities. And third, and honestly this one is crucial, ensure no group is ever forced to assimilate or abandon its identity just to fit into the majority culture. Nobody should have to erase who they are just to belong. At the end of the day, empowering these historically marginalized voices creates a significantly stronger, much more representative democracy. When you finally amplify the voices of folks whose challenges are usually brushed aside by the majority, the entire democratic system becomes way more robust.
Now, to be totally impartial, we have to flip the coin. Let's look at Section 4, the critic's perspective, the risk of social division.
Critics present a very different but completely valid angle to consider. They argue that emphasizing our differences too heavily might actually fracture our communities. The thought process is, if a society spends all its energy highlighting exactly how everyone is different from one another, that intense focus could breed division. It might draw rigid lines between us instead of helping us find common ground.
The big worry here is the pendulum swinging way too far. If every single group isolates itself, demanding only separate recognition, without acknowledging any sort of shared, foundational societal bond, our overall unity weakens. The fear is literally that the fabric of society could start to tear, leaving us with a bunch of isolated factions.
Which brings us to our final stretch, Section 5, finding the balance, respecting diversity while maintaining harmony.
It's the ultimate tightrope walk, isn't it? The goal of any healthy society is finding that delicate balance. You have to respect diversity, giving real space and dignity to those unique identities while simultaneously preserving our shared social unity. It is definitely not an either-or situation. It has to be a careful, intentional balancing act. But when it's properly balanced, wow! A fair society views its diversity not as some annoying problem to be solved, but as an absolute strength to be celebrated. In that ideal state, every single group receives dignity, and all those interacting cultures make the society incredibly vibrant.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. How can we actually practically achieve this perfect balance of celebrating our uniqueness while keeping our society united? As you look around your own community this week, think about how social attitudes can give every individual the dignity of being seen for exactly who they are, without losing that common thread that holds us all together. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those big questions.